What's going on, guys? Apathettic here with all your tips, recommendations, and everything in between. And in today's video, I'm going to walk you through step by step what is the best Void Warlock build for PvP. We'll be covering everything from the subclass to use, the weapon loadout, stats and exotic armor to optimize your Warlock, and lastly, the ways I think the Void subclasses on Warlock can be brought more in line with other subclasses. So if you're someone who loves the Void subclasses on Warlock but isn't sure which to run, then this video is for you. Before that, I also have a Discord for people looking to team up, discuss builds, or ask questions, so consider joining the Discord using the link below if you're looking to connect with some like-minded Destiny players. With that, let's get into it. Getting into our subclass, and we're going to be running bottom tree Voidwalker or Attunement of Hunger. Starting with the super, we have Nova Bomb, hurl an explosive bolt of void light at the enemy, disintegrating those caught within its blast. And while this super is okay at best, the blast radius on it is not the best. And so a lot of times you'll find even when you think you should kill someone, because of that smaller blast radius, you end up not securing the kill in a lot of scenarios. So while this is nice to have, Nova Bomb is something or ability I mainly use to shut down other supers, kind of like a kamikaze type move, and it's not something I really rely on very much, and it's definitely not the main reason why I run this subclass. But talking more about specifically bottom tree, we gotta start with Devour. Kills with this melee ability fully regenerate your health for a short time afterward. Kills restore additional health. And so triggering Devour is triggered multiple ways. It's triggered by your Nova Bomb. It's triggered also by Feed the Void, which is where you can consume your grenade to regenerate your health. And so what this subclass is all about, or then in this specific tree, is triggering Devour as much as possible, so you can constantly be gaining your health back, getting that grenade energy back. And that's going to allow you to go on long sprees, go from enemy to enemy, constantly kind of consuming them and feeding the void, if you will, to get your health back and really catch your enemies off guard. You'll find that when you consume your grenade as someone's pushing you, as they come around the corner, they'll kind of be thrown off because they're expecting you to be weaker, which is causing them to be overly aggressive, and that allows us to turn the tables on that engagement and push right back at them. From there, we have Vortex. Nova Bomb creates a singularity which continually damages enemies trapped inside. Kills with Nova Bomb grant the Devour effect. So again, it is nice. We can use Nova Bomb to trigger our Devour. It's just one more thing that's going to trigger that ability or perk. In terms of the singularity or the kind of like AoE damage that this perk does, it's okay. It's not something I rely on or try to purposely use, because a lot of times you're just using your Nova Bomb to secure a kill or take out a super. From there, we have Insatiable, and this all again ties back into Devour. Getting those kills is going to extend that duration of our Devour to kind of keep that countdown timer going, so we can continually keep recharging our grenade. And so I really like this tree because it's very synergistic, or has great synergy, I guess is a better way to say it, because everything is going to be proccing Devour, allowing us to constantly refresh our Devour to be regenerating our health as much as possible. And then going into our rifts, and this kind of ties together with Devour, is we want to make sure we're using Empowering Rift. Because we have a perk like Devour and the ability to constantly regenerate our health, it kind of makes healing Rift a waste. So having Empowering Rift and pairing that with something like a 120 and then pairing that with Devour is going to be great. It's going to take that synergy to a whole nother level, because we're going to be constantly two-tapping Guardians and also getting our health back as well at the same exact time. So it's going to make us very hard to take down, and just makes you feel incredibly powerful when you're able to proc Devour and throw down your Empowering Rift and really string some kills together. As for our jump, a lot of people when they're running Void like to use Blink, and Blink is decent against more average players, but when you're playing better players in very competitive modes like Trials or Survival, most of those players are going to be able to predict when you're going to be able to come out your Blink and be able to easily shotgun or just gun you down. And as well, on the top of the fact that when you come out of Blink, your weapon ready speed and your ADS speed, all that is kind of slowed down, so almost puts you at a disadvantage. So like I recommend with any of the Void or the Warlock subclasses, you're going to want to run Burst Glide. This is going to allow you to skate around the map as quickly as possible and get around the map as quickly as possible, and gives you much more horizontal movement, so you're not going to be floating up quite as high, which is great. It makes us a lot harder to hit if we're not that high in the air. And lastly, for our grenade, I recommend the Vortex Grenade. Axion Bolts, they had their heyday back in Destiny 1. They're definitely not very good now. They can be decent for getting enemies off their spot, but ultimately they're not going to really be as much of an impact as something like a Vortex Grenade, where it does that damage over time, and it's great for keeping enemies off of heavy, keeping enemies off of a point or locking down a corridor. So many different advantages to using this grenade, and so that's why I recommend it. Great against Titan shields as well. And then the scatter grenade, again, decent, but none of these between the Axiom Bolt and scatter grenade are going to really outperform the Vortex grenade in terms of its utility. Getting into our weapon loadout, I'm going to be running for my kinetic a 120 primary. 120s are incredibly strong right now, guys. I don't know, as much as I love 140s and how they feel, the range and damage output along with all the damage boosting perks you can run with 120s really make them hard to compete against, especially if you have something like a True Prophecy or an Igneous Hammer, which is the Trials 120 hand cannon that can run with Rampage. That's going to make you even more deadly because you'll need 1 kill to start 2-tapping most Guardians. So again, here I'm running my True Prophecy with Opening Shot and Rampage. I'm running a Rampage spec because I want to increase that duration on Rampage as long as possible, so I can try to string more of those 2 taps together. I know a lot of people will swear by Icarus, and I do as well, but when I'm running this particular hand cannon, I just try not to jump quite as often, which allows me to run this Rampage spec. For my shotgun, I'm running Fellwinter's Lie, and while this may be good now, there is a nerf coming down the line for Fellwinters, and everyone should have the opportunity to actually get this shotgun now. So no worry, people in my comments giving me crap about having a Fellwinters when they can't get one, since everybody should be able to get this from the little kiosk. And lastly, I'm running Commemoration here. You can run really whatever you want in your heavy slot. It doesn't really matter because you're only going to be using it a small amount of the time. Getting into our stats and armor as well as our exotic, we're going to start with the exotic we're going to be using for this Void build, and I went with Ophidian Aspects, running Cobra Totemic, weapons ready and reload very quickly. Melee range is extended. And so the reason I chose to run Ophidian Aspect is because since I'm pairing with a 120, I want an exotic that's going to help with all the downsides of a 120, so that poor handling, the poor reload speed, all those things to make the weapon feel even better. And on top of the fact that there's not a lot of Warlock exotics that really pair super well with the Void subclasses. You do have Astrocyte Verse, but because that requires you to run Blink, I'm not a big fan of that one, even though it does help overcome some of the downsides of running Blink. I'd rather run Ophidian Aspects, which are going to really help all my weapons feel a lot better. Even having a Fellwinters with Quick Draw or anything like that, being able to stow your hand cannon faster is going to allow us to pull out our shotgun even faster. And so running Bottom Tree Void really relies a lot more on your gun skill than maybe some other subclasses, which can be a little bit more ability focused, because you're going to be consuming that grenade. That's one ability gone, and then you're going to want to be able to make sure you're securing those kills with your weapon. So having that in mind, that's what made me choose Ophidian Aspects for this build, to make sure my weapons feel as quick and snappy as possible. Getting into our armor and stats outside of our exotic, you'll see here I'm running tier 10 recovery and tier 10 intellect. Out of these, tier 10 recovery is the most important stat you guys should be aiming for on Warlock on any subclass. It is the most important character stat in the game, in my opinion, because it's going to control what allows you to get back into those fights quicker. Or if you're running from an enemy, you won't need to buy as much time to get your health back fully before you can pop out and re-engage. So definitely, if you can, invest 100% of your stats in recovery first, and then kind of decide what is most important to you there. In terms of the rest of the stats, I invest tier 10 in the intellect stat so I can get my Nova Bomb as much as possible. Not because Nova Bomb is necessarily amazing, but because of Devour and the perks in the Bottom Tree Voidwalker, I'm able to get my grenade back as quickly as possible. And as far as the strength stat, on Bottom Tree Voidwalker, the melee ability is not super powerful, so I'm not super concerned about that. So I know I'm gonna be able to get my grenade back quickly from the perks in the tree, the subclass tree itself, and then having tier 10 intellect is gonna allow me to get that Nova Bomb as quickly as possible. Getting into the rest of our stats though, or our armor, is I'm also running Unflinching Hand Cannon on my armor. This is gonna make it to where when I'm getting shot, it allows the flinch on my hand cannon to be reduced, so I can be a little bit more accurate and not worry about, as I'm taking damage, being kind of like forced into missing shots, if you will. Getting into our boots, Because I'm running Fellwinter's Light, I'm running double shotgun scavenger. This is going to give me as much green ammo as possible, or ammo for my shotgun whenever I pick it up, so I can ensure that my shotgun is always loaded and I don't have to worry about running into an enemy and not having any shotgun ammo or only having one shot. On my Warlock Bond, I am running double bomber, so this reduces grenade cooldown when using your class ability. And so this is nice, so when we're popping that empowering rift, it's going to give us basically half of our energy for our grenade back right away. So I definitely recommend this, making sure you're running a solar bond or class item so you can get your that grenade energy back as quickly as possible. And then I'm running higher energy fire, so when we become charged with light, we gain a bonus to weapon damage. And this is another thing that's going to allow us, on top of rampage, on top of running our empowering rift, that's going to allow us to 2-tap with our true prophecy or 120 hand cannon of choice. And then lastly, for our helmet, I am running hand cannon targeting to make sure that, again, I have that improved target acquisition, accuracy, and aim down sight speeds for my hand cannon, which pairs nicely with our Ophidian Aspects to make our hand cannon feel just even more snappy and more reactive to what we're trying to do in the game. So now that we've talked about bottom tree, Void Walker, and our weapon loadout and armor and stats to really make this subclass successful, I want to talk about some things Bungie could do to bring the Void subclasses for Warlock more in line with other subclasses on Warlock. Starting with top tree, I don't honestly think it needs a whole lot of change. I don't think every Void subclass on Warlock needs to be viable in PvP. This one could be one that's average or below average in PvP and still be very good in PvE like it is now. Getting to middle tree Void Walker, or the tree featuring Nova Warp, I think they could make the movement speed in Nova Warp a little bit faster. It doesn't be quite as slow as it is right now. I think the damage resistance on it is fine. I think the damage it does is fine, but they need to make the movement speed in this super a little bit faster, so that way you don't always need to teleport, which reduces the duration of your super to catch up to your enemies, because even then it can be sometimes hard when running Nova Warp and in super to catch people running away from you. I think everything else in the subclass is pretty okay. It's fine line running middle tree Void Walker or adjusting it, because you could easily make it super OP like it was when it first came out in Forsaken. Getting into bottom tree though, I feel like there's some good things that could be really done here. Starting with the Nova Bomb super, they need to increase the blast radius. For those of you that didn't play D1, the blast radius on Nova Bomb in D1 was very generous. I don't know if it needs to be that generous, but it was a lot harder to whiff for Nova Bomb in D1 than it is in D2, and it's because of that such a small blast radius. I think if they increase the blast radius alone, that would help the usage on bottom tree Void Walker, as well as reducing the amount of time it takes to consume your grenade. I think it takes just a second or two too long. They can make sure you consume it a little bit faster. I think that would tremendously help the neutral game of bottom tree Void. And lastly, they need to buff Axion bolts. Nobody runs Axion bolts. They were incredibly powerful in D1. I don't think they need to be D1 level powerful, but I definitely think they could be boosted in terms of their damage and how fast they track enemies and for how long. Maybe again, not to D1 levels to where they track you for like 10 miles across the map, but the damage and how fast they track, I think, could be increased. So you can see a lot more utilization out of Axion bolts. And by doing that, by buffing Axion bolts and buffing how quickly you can consume your grenade to trigger that feed the void where you can get that devour, I think that would significantly boost the neutral game on bottom tree Void Walker. And then pairing that with a higher blast radius and Nova Bomb, I think you would see Void Walker subclass and Warlock get a lot more love. But let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think could be done to further improve the Void Walker subclass? I feel like it's one of the least used subclasses in Destiny 2, especially with the introduction of stasis. So I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on how it can be improved down below. With that, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, as they're all free ways to support me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.